We have some more NHL signings to discuss, plus we have some more news and rumors around some of the current UFAs and many of the RFAs that remain unsigned as we get close to training camps opening up here soon. We'll get into all the latest news and rumors coming up next. Welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news and rumors to discuss here today. And first of all, I want to get started with a couple of signings that we had around the NHL here as well. A couple of goaltenders with some contract extensions. First of all, the Winnipeg Jets have signed goaltender Eric Comrie to a 2-year contract at an annual value of $700,000. Now, of course, that's a pretty good deal for Comrie, I think. Obviously, remaining in the NHL as a third-string goaltender for the Jets for the short term is probably the best case scenario for him at this time. Obviously, they have guys like Connor Hellebuyck and Laurent Brossoit who are playing ahead of him, but he can certainly prove to be capable due to injuries or whatnot. He can continue to develop being in the American Hockey League for the short term. Obviously, the Winnipeg Jets have some other deals that are a little bit more pressing right now to get done, but at least they were able to look after Comrie and get that deal kind of off Shovel Day off desk here, and he can continue to focus on the other two big RFAs, which we will have some discussion on here just a little bit later in the video. Now, the LA Kings have also signed goaltender Jack Campbell to a contract extension as well. He also gets a 2-year deal. His value is $1.65 million. So obviously that puts Jack Campbell under contract here for the next 3 years because he still had 1 year left on his existing contract. Of course, Jonathan Quick's under contract for a number of years. And then they also have other goaltender, Cal Peterson, locked up for a couple more years here as well. Now, of course, there has been a lot of talk around the LA Kings. Obviously, they're going through a bit of a rebuild right now, but they still have a lot of veteran players on that team and what moves they might make. There has been some talk around Jonathan Quick now as a goaltender who could be moved for some time, but there really hasn't been a whole lot of discussion around that recently. But seeing Campbell and Peterson now both under contract for the next couple of years, I would not be surprised if that's something the Kings explore. But given the injury history of Jonathan Quick and the contract term that remains, moving him might prove to be difficult. But there certainly are a few teams around the NHL that I think do have some question marks in the goaltending department heading into the current NHL season. And if things don't start the way that they're hoping for, I could see them maybe going into the trade market to make some upgrades, and Quick certainly would be one of the top goaltenders who I think could be moved during the season if the right deal comes along. Now, before we jump into the RFA talk that's going around the NHL right now, I want to take a quick look at one of the other pending unrestricted free agents, and that's former Habs defenseman Andrei Markov, who's made it quite clear that he was really hoping for a return to the Montreal Canadiens to hopefully play his 1000th NHL game and play at least one more season. Of course, his past 2 seasons he's played over in the KHL after not being able to reach a contract terms with the Habs a couple years ago, and now he's looking to make his return, likely play 1 or 2 final seasons before hanging him up and calling it a career. But we do have recent news here from GM Marc Bergevin in a recent interview, who basically has made it clear that the Montreal Canadiens are not interested at all in signing defenseman Andrei Markov. Now, he did indicate in this interview that a couple years' time, he did make it clear in his interview that a few years ago they were unable to come to terms. Of course, Markov later went to the KHL, and since that time, the player has aged and slowed down. The Habs are heading in a new direction, and he really doesn't want to take away playing time from young defensemen like Noah Juleson and Victor Mete. And of course, he also acknowledged the fact that they have guys like Josh Brook and Romanov as well coming over, hopefully from Russia, in the next year. And he wants to make sure they're not tied up with some older veterans, that they get plenty of opportunity in playing time. Of course, they also already have a couple of veteran guys, under contract longer term as well, including Shea Weber, their captain. So they just don't want to make that blue line any older and take away from opportunities from the young players, but certainly does make a lot of sense. But it's the first time we've really heard Marc Bergevin publicly speak about the possibility of signing Markov. So I guess we can, like we did with Marleau and the Sharks, we can scratch off the possibility of a reunion taking place between Montreal and Andrei Markov. Now, Markov has hired himself an agent, as I discussed here before. He does have Alan Walsh, who's one of the top agents around the NHL, and they have made it publicly known, but they haven't revealed, of course, who they're talking to. There appears to be several teams around inquiring about his services, but at this point, considering how close we are to training camp, it probably seems unlikely that he gets a deal. I think more than likely he'll have some offers for professional tryouts, go to training camp and see how things work out and see if he can earn himself a deal. But unfortunately, he will not be playing game number 1000 in a Habs uniform. Now let's take a look around the NHL at the RFA stalemate that we're still faced with as we inch closer and closer to NHL training camps getting underway. I do think at some point here over the next couple of days as these training camps start to get ready to open that somebody is going to blink and we might see like a rash of signings. But I do think as, considering how long all of this has drug on, that there does seem more and more likely all the time that at least a few of these guys are going to end up sitting out for at least a little bit of the NHL season. Hopefully we don't see anything like we did last year with William Nylander and the Maple Leafs. Some of these teams really just can't afford to not have their guys not in the lineup on opening night because they're so important to the team. But also as time goes on and they sign later into the year, it's going to make their cap hit for the current year even higher. And ultimately a lot of these teams just don't have the cap space to be able to afford that. Now some of these teams have more flexibility than others, but a lot of these teams just don't have that kind of room to be fiddling around with. Fortunately for the Leafs last year, they did have more flexibility, and whether or not William Nylander signed in October, November, December didn't really have a lot of impact on their cap situation for that year. But right now it seems to be a lot of the holdup around the league appears to be on term. Some of it is on money. According to Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun and some other NHL insiders, when it comes to Mitch Marner, they really believe ultimately that it does come down to money, that the Leafs and Marner's camp have discussed a variety of terms and that both sides would be comfortable with a variety of term contracts, whether it be a 3-year deal, a 6-year deal, or whatever. I don't think, based on what they're saying, that term really is the holding up here point for the Marner contract. It really does seem to be that they're having a difficult time and they're far apart on dollars. I personally think Marner, based on what we're hearing at least, wants Matthews' money, and until he gets it, it's just not likely not going to budge here and not going to get a deal done, which ultimately is holding up a lot of these other terms. Now, there is a lot of talk from the NHL insiders as well that other GMs outside of Toronto are not real pleased with the Austin Matthews contract and that a lot of these RFAs basically want to be walked to UFA status, and these 5-year deals that Matthews got is kind of the really appealing point here. It makes him an unrestricted free agent at as young an age as possible, and it'll also, because of that, gives them the flexibility to leave and sign elsewhere if they choose to do that. And regardless if they want to leave or not, they can certainly cash in much sooner. That longer term contract that was so appealing to many guys in the last number of years, this doesn't seem to be the trend right now, and it certainly makes a lot of sense as to why that would be. I mean, these players are certainly taking some risk at the same time, because obviously there could be a lot of things that happen that they can't control. But if the salary cap keeps going up, they keep improving, they can cash in over and over again and certainly make more money longer term and have more flexibility. So it makes a lot of sense in that regard. But the Matthews contract was really the first mega star that signed a deal that basically walked him directly to free agency. And a lot of these other RFAs are looking at that saying, that's what I want. If you're not going to give that to me, then I'm not signing. And a lot of these guys, the problem really does boil down to term. Now, we can't say that's across the board. I think there are some unique situations here that some of these players, it is more about money, that they do have to bridge some gaps. But ultimately, based on NHL insiders, when you look at the Vancouver situation of Brock Besser, we've seen reports from Rick Dhaliwal saying that the Canucks and Besser are really not all that close, but things are sounding like Besser wants a shorter term contract. So I'm guessing 5 years or less. So he either wants to be walked directly to UFA status or a shorter term deal where he still remains to be an RFA. Now, if he gets a type of deal like a Timo Meier, for example, that's a really backloaded contract, and that qualifying offer that he's going to be due, because he will be an RFA at the end of that contract, is going to be a really substantial amount of money. And then if he takes that on a 1-year contract, he can still go to unrestricted free agency that way as well. So according to Dhaliwal on Besser, they're not close, but Besser prefers a shorter term contract. So we'll see if things can progress there in the coming days before training camp opens. Of course, we've seen reports out of Colorado that there was a period of time there again where Sakic and the Rantanen camp were not really having much negotiations or talking at all, but that things apparently have picked up here yet again, and that there's a little bit more urgency with training camp being just around the corner to get a deal done. Now, there was some rumors on Mikko Rantanen earlier because he is skating in Norway, and there was some talk that maybe he would get an offer and play in the KHL if he's not signed by the Colorado Avalanche by the time the season starts in October. But according to Colorado Avalanche beat writers, they're saying now that that's not the case at all, that he has no desire to play in the KHL. He only wants to play in the NHL. And ultimately, like I said, there was some rumors going around that KHL team, AK Bars, was offering him $4 million to sign for a one-year deal. And ultimately, obviously that's a lot of money, but it's not nearly what he would make in the NHL. And they have made it clear that it's really not something he's interested in, but he is training and skating over in Norway until he gets himself a contract with the Avalanche. Then he'll report to camp if it gets done in time. I guess we'll see what happens there. But apparently the Avalanche and Rantanen are talking again. Some rumors a little bit while ago as well about Ivan Provorov and the Philadelphia Flyers, saying that Provorov was seeking a contract of $10 million per year. Now, of course, Flyers beat writer Sam Carchidi indicates those rumors are also untrue. He believes Provorov is looking for around $8 million. I haven't really seen a lot around term as well, but maybe after we seen that Jake Gardiner signing, that kind of takes away any bigger names on the UFA side. Of course, on the RFA side, guys like Provorov and McAvoy and Werenski, Brandon Carlo. So, at some point here, something's got to give. But Provorov, apparently, according to Carchidi, is looking for around $8 million. And we've had reports a few weeks ago that things were getting close between the Flyers and Konechny, but yet we still don't have a deal there as well. But apparently they are still talking. We don't have any indication that things are imminent or close, but at least talks are ongoing. And the Flyers still appear to be optimistic that they can get both of their RFAs signed here before the season gets underway. Of course, that takes us to the big two guys in Winnipeg. Now, there's been some more rumors around Patrick Laine. Now, I know a few days ago we discussed some Patrick Laine trade rumors, based on the source, though. It was a source I wasn't as familiar with, but like I said, after checking them out, they did appear to have a pretty decent track record. Now, there's a different source as well right now talking about Laine and saying that there are some links to the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks and the Jets have been having trade talks, but again, that's a source that I haven't really been able to check out as of yet, so I wouldn't really run with that as of yet and think that there's really any serious trade talks going on. But I have seen that come across through Twitter accounts mentioning these rumors as well, because they do seem to have some kind of track record with being accurate in the past. But at this point, I'm not ready to say that there's a lot of stock into that trade rumor, but I would not be surprised that Laine ends up being one of the guys that either is traded or is possibly, held out beyond the start of the year. Based on what we've heard of the Kyle Connors camp before, it looks as though he's eager to sign a long-term contract and get back to work with Winnipeg, but yet they seem to be far apart as well. Either way, the Winnipeg Jets have some work to do. I'm not really sure if they're going to trade Laine or not, but I think they have to consider all options. There clearly does appear to be tension between him and the team based on all the remarks we've heard out of Laine over the summer and a lot of the reports we've seen from NHL insiders. So I can't say with any kind of certainty that he's going to be traded. Obviously, a player of that magnitude, something that's going to have to be, taken very carefully. But obviously, I do think it's something they have to consider, at least at this point. And if nothing else, if they can't come to terms on a contract, they have to figure something out. But right now, we don't have any further updates beyond that on the Winnipeg Jets to big two RFAs that remain unsigned to this point here. But considering how close we are to training camp, I would think that throughout this week, we're likely going to have something has to give here. And maybe we'll see a domino or two fall throughout this coming week, which will hopefully spawn more contracts and get a lot of these guys back with their NHL clubs under contract for the coming season. As I've said numerous times before, it's not good for the player if they miss team. It's obviously not good for the team because they're very important players, and it's not good for the NHL, not good for business. Obviously, these guys certainly help sell a lot of tickets, a lot of merchandise, and they're becoming big stars around the league. So obviously, it's important for them not to miss time. So hopefully with the season coming up here shortly and the pressure kind of increasing on both sides, we'll see some deals get done and get back to normal here soon enough. So that's all your latest news and rumors for today. Of course, as always, want to know your thoughts and opinions on everything we discussed here today. Are we finally going to see some of these big-time RFAs get signed before training camp gets open? And which RFAs do you think are most likely to end up not signing and possibly sitting out to start the season? Let me know what you think down in the comment section, and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.